Viking Central Podcast here. Got Tom, my boy, as usual. Pretty much a permanent co-host. Pretty much right now. He's here pretty much every episode. Love to have you. I feel like we play off each other pretty well. So, yeah, just another episode here, Tom. Gonna talk some Vikings. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Obviously, always excited to get on here, talk some Vikings football, even just Minnesota sports in general.
Yeah.
Outside of, just the normal, journalism student, it's nice to be able to talk about professional sports and, maybe get away from a little bit of the college scenery and now talk about the pros, the more exciting, stuff probably. It's nice to get a little break, I would say, for me, instead of focusing on college basketball all the time and soccer and hockey.
Yeah,
and now I can focus on like NFL, which is really nice. So yeah, man,
Sure.
I'm glad to be on and, I agree. We totally bounce well off each other and I'm totally ready to go.
Yep. And we were having like this couple-minute conversation before we even got on. We were talking about the Timberwolves. That's another conversation for another day, but that's gonna be an interesting offseason for the Timberwolves and an interesting offseason for the Vikings. So there could be a lot of action going on in Minnesota sports here. So we're gonna just talk some main storylines coming up, and again, we talked about this a little bit, but some veterans situations that haven't come to a conclusion yet. So obviously we cut Eric Kendricks, we cut Adam Thielen, we got things figured out with them, but there's still questions to be answered, surrounding Dalvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, Daniil Hunter. When's TJ Hawkinson going to get an extension? When's Justin Jefferson going to get an extension? Is Kirk for sure a Viking in 2023? Are they going to extend him for another year or two? There's just so many things to weigh here. So it's just a lot of conversations. I know the main two talkers have been Zadarius Smith and Dalvin Cook. And I think we're in lockstep with this a little bit. We think Dalvin's probably gone, but there's still an opening where maybe he can restructure and stick around. And then Zadarius Smith's obviously, it's just a up in the air situation there.
Yeah.
So what do you think about those two again, Tom? And then maybe we can start talking about when should we expect extensions, and this Kirk drama kind of, still looming in the air.
Yeah, I have a hard time, I think, seeing Dalvin Cook back. Obviously there's not too much, you're putting into a team when you like draft a running back in the 7th round. But I do believe in McBride, and I do have a hard time saying hypothetically, week one or, it's the last week you're putting on the roster cuts. I have a hard time seeing you keeping all of CJ Ham, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, Ty Chandler, and Dwayne McBride.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be the odd man out. I don't think they're going to risk putting Ty Chandler or McBride on a practice squad. Someone is going to, snatch them up immediately. You just re-signed Alexander Madison. I believe they restructured CJ Ham, so he's pretty much locked in for a roster spot. It kind of leaves Dalvin Cook, and what do you do with Dalvin Cook? I know there's a lot of Dolphins steam. I do believe the Dolphins steam. I believe it was Charlie Walters from the Pioneer Press or Star Tribune, one of them. And he said that he's heard that Dalvin Cook's going to be traded to Miami for a 5th round pick and post June 1st. And I absolutely agree with that. I believe that's probably the value. I think Dalvin's value is probably at a 4th. I think a 4th's really good value for Dalvin. I mean, Robert Quinn went for a 4th round pick with a bad contract as an edge rusher to the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I think the bar should be a 4th, a 3rd or 4th for Dalvin Cook. But I do think ultimately the Vikings and Kwesi, they really do not have any leverage at this point. Everyone knows that they want that salary cap space. They want to free up that money to whether it's work on a JJ extension or a Hawk. They want that breathing room where it could be to sign rookies. I mean, there's so much. The Vikings, I think, will probably give in. So I think Dalvin for a 5th, I'm cool with that because that gives you, I believe, 3 5th round picks next year. Do you have a 6th? Do you have your 7th back? Or they might not have their 7th, but I know they could potentially have 2 4ths, So Kwesi's building that mid-round draft capital that I think is very important. And I think Dalvin, I think he's just fed up. I think kind of like with Adam Thielen, there's really no hatred between each other, but it's time to move on. You were part of the past. You were part of the old philosophy of the run first offense. Thielen had no hard feelings. He went his separate ways. I think the Vikings will do the same with Dalvin. And I think Dalvin Cook and Devin Achane, if they're together and Miami, I think, Miami's window is wide open for a championship. Parents like win the division, they could go there. There's a lot that I think Miami, it's just a win-win for both sides. Ultimately, they can move on because Dalvin is not taking a pay cut. He's gone on the record saying that he is not restructuring. So Darius, though, I kind of think he stays. I think they're going to do his deal, and I could see a scenario where, after they move Cook and they free up that money, I could see them wanting to potentially do something similar with Za'Darius, where I think they'll give him a pay raise. I know Danielle Hunter has to be the priority right now, but I don't know if there's a market for Za'Darius Smith. If there was, it was this past draft, this past weekend, 2 weekends ago. That's when that was the time to sell Za'Darius. The only possible scenario that I personally would love to see would be sending Za'Darius back to Baltimore and getting Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen is very upset. He's already asked for a trade. I think you should just keep Za'Darius. You can never have enough edge rushers. As he's older, you kick him inside. But I would love to see them just trade him straight up for Patrick Queen. Bring Patrick Queen, Brian Asamoah, and you got Jordan Hicks. We've talked about could be a camp casualty anyway. Ivan Pace Jr. That linebacker room's starting to look a little juicy now. So I think those are probably the two options, and those are the scenarios that the Vikings could be facing.
Yeah, I like I said before, I think Delvin's gone. We kind of agree with that. The Miami conversation just makes way too much sense. He fits in that offense, and way better than this Vikings, especially with a crowded running back room. And I just can't wait to see like a three-headed monster. If Dwayne McBride's kind of lives up to his hype, you got Alexander Madison, Ty Chandler another year in the system, and then Dwayne McBride. You're gonna have fresh running backs pounding that ball pretty much the whole game. So I can't wait to see kind of three-headed monster in that area. So yeah, I think Dalvin Cook is gone, and Miami's probably the likely landing spot. But yeah, if they can fetch a 2024 fifth, that's probably just what you're gonna have to settle with. Like you said, getting that mid-round capital is going to be big. He's going to be able to maneuver way more than he did this year in the draft, which is good for Kwesi because he loves to move around in the draft. So yeah, I think Delvin is gone. Za'Darius is kind of tougher. I think he would fit pretty well in this system with Brian Flores. He can play inside. He can play on the edge. It'd be fun to watch him, Danielle, Marcus Davenport, and Za'Darius all on the same team, kind of the front seven, raising hell a little bit. But that Patrick Queen, Za'Darius Smith swap is pretty interesting because I think Patrick Queen just kind of needs like a new place to move on with his career. And I think Minnesota would probably be a pretty good spot with Brian Flores. And like you said, team up with Brian Asamoah, Ivan Pace Jr., just have those guys flying around the football would be very, very exciting. Just to get some juice in the linebacker room because we haven't been used to that. Jordan Hicks, Eric Kendricks last year, just not the same guys that they were 3-4 years ago. So yeah, I think we're both in agreement with that. But extension-wise, do you see JJ and TJ getting extended both this offseason, or what are you kind of looking at for extension-wise?
I think that's tough. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard to do both of them because you still don't know what's going on with Kirk. I think a TJ Hawkinson deal, I think it's done before JJ. There really is no rush. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what JJ, I believe, is still under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even, they haven't even picked, they did just pick up his option. So I don't know if there's like a huge rush, but I feel like there is a rush though on like TJ Hawkinson. He's an upcoming free agent, traded a lot of draft capital to get him. You do not want to see him just as like a 2-year rental. He's a guy you want to lock up, you want to lock up long term. I don't know what a contract's going to look like, but if just look at these contracts. I mean, Darren Waller at age 30, he got a pretty big deal. George Kittle's gotten a big deal over the years. Mark Andrews. So I think that, 5 years, 75. I think that sounds about right, about what he's probably going to get.
Probably.
And I could see maybe he'll probably get about like 50 guaranteed. Something about that. I mean, he's kind of your number 2 wide receiver right now until Addison develops. He's a guy you want going forward. I mean, you got to lock him up. And, JJ, obviously, he's going to cost so much. But I think you can't have JJ contract talks yet until they've decided inside that building what's going to actually happen with Kirk. I don't think you could. I don't see how it's possible to get a deal done with Hockenson. Try to get a deal done with maybe Danielle Hunter. He's got an expiring contract. Then you got to deal with JJ and Kirk. I mean, there's no way you can pay Kirk and all these guys. So you need to Kwesi and them have to make a decision. Are we signing Kirk Cousins to an extension? If not, then yes, we could get a JJ deal done. But if not, then you're gonna have to really, really get creative. And if they are gonna sign Cousins, I don't know how you could afford Cousins for, we'll say, even if he doesn't want Daniel Jones money, say he signs for 33, 34 a year on average. JJ's going to want 32. Hawkinson's going to want about 15 to 20-ish probably in that range. Darisaw is going to be doing about a year or two. You still got Brian O'Neill. You've got there's just not enough. There's not enough. Yeah. Someone's going to
JJ should be the priority, right? I mean,
absolutely. I agree. He should be the priority. Is he going to be? I don't know because we've never seen Kwesi in a situation like this before. We knew Rick Spielman, we knew Spielman prioritized his guys. Anyone he drafted that hit, you take priority. Even over the quarterback, you take, they would re-sign Kendricks over and over again. They would try to re-sign Anthony Harris over and over again. They would try to sign, Danielle Hunter and all these guys. And that was probably the biggest flaw Rick Spielman had. Was he was too loyal to his players. He was just way too loyal. Where eventually you get into a situation like you've been the last few years since Kwesi's been here. Harrison Smith has been a very tricky situation because of his contract. Kirk Cousins has been in a very, Kirk Cousins has put the front office in a very tricky situation because of his contract. They have been forced to extend him every year because it's so heavy in that 1 year because they kept pushing it back. And then now you got to deal with Danielle Hunter, who's got a $5 million base salary. How do you deal with that? And then they start to add up. And, Thielen put them in a tricky spot, so they had to cut ties. So I think what it's going to come down to is, they need to have a plan in place. Does Kwesi have a plan? No idea. I'm going to assume he does because he's a very calculated individual. But we don't know because Kirk Cousins kind of, he kind of controls. He holds all the cards.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards where he's going to just play out this year under his last year of his contract. I think the offense is ready to take another step, but they don't want to put themselves in a 2-3 year situation where you're stuck with Kirk Cousins again.
Yeah.
I just think they want to see him play out. And maybe if we do make a playoff run, you can revisit those contract extensions after the year. Because Kirk has said, even in press conferences, he wants to be in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So if he plays out this year, his contract out, I don't think there's going to be any hard feelings after this year. I think Kirk would be more than, happy to sign an extension if that's the route they want to go. But I don't think Kwesi is going to rush it with Kirk and sign him to a 3-year extension or anything like that. And I know the trade talks and stuff like that, we were talking a little bit before, are the 49ers still kind of creeping around, post June 1st? You never know. But I kind of find it hard to see. I want to see Trey Lance, obviously get a chance, but I think Kirk Cousins in this offense is in the second year is maybe a little bit too good to pass up for a quarterback you don't know much about, because this offense is ready to go. You got Justin Jefferson, first round wide receiver, Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson, a full offseason in this offense. I think it's just maybe too good to pass up, but you never know. It's his last year of his contract. There's a lot of split ends that have to be, loosened up. So it's another, month, another off season where we just don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. It's just the craziest thing is, it's such a tricky situation simply because if it was up to Minnesota, if it was up to Kevin O'Connell, they would have the heir apparent in the waiting. As much as you and me both, we love Jaren Hall and his potential, he's still a 5th-round pick at 25 years old. That doesn't really scream heir apparent, someone that you could just kind of hand the reins to a year from now.
Yep.
So I think ideally, in an ideal world, I think, they would trade for Trey Lance and have him sit behind Cousins for a year, see what happens. But it's like, why would Lance want that? And why would you send the capital that it would cost it's going to cost you a second or third round pick probably with some condition. Maybe it's a fourth that could turn into a second, or a third that could turn into a second, or a second that could turn into there's ways that you can manipulate it.
Yeah.
But it's such a weird situation because it's like, say they don't want to re-sign Kirk, say Vikings either miss the playoffs or they are a first round exit. What do you do with Kirk? Because say you're picking in the middle of the first, that probably takes you out of Caleb Williams and Drake May. Even if you wanted to trade up for them and send the farm like there was rumored for Richardson, that's just unfeasible. It's just not probable. So do you really want to just, who's going to be there to sign? Like, you're not going to want to sign an Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota stopgap. Then that leaves you Quinn Ewers, JJ McCarthy, guys like that. Michael Penix from Washington. It's just, I don't know if that's the route they'd want to take. So you really need to have a plan in place like now.
Yeah.
And if not, I would even give the New York Jets a call. I would gladly send a 5th round pick for Zach Wilson. Get somebody over here to compete with like Jaron Hall. You're gonna carry Jaron Hall anyway. You're not gonna let him go in the practice squad. Hell, even call Tennessee. Give up a 5th or 6th from Malik Willis. There's options out there, which I think I'm not going to rule out yet because, we've seen Kwesi in the past. He's traded for Ross Blacklock. He's traded for Jalen Naylor. He's traded for Nick Mullins in the preseason. He's not afraid to make deals that'll benefit the roster for the upcoming year. But those are the routes that I think you need to take. You can't just head into next year with no plan. And you can't just assume you're going to be able to trade up for a quarterback, or you're going to – even if you want to sign a stopgap, that costs a lot of money. That costs a lot of money.
They're not cheap. Yeah.
It's going to cost you $10 million minimum.
Yep.
And you're already paying Kirk $28 million in dead money next year on the books. So you don't even get a compensatory pick for him. So at that point, you're paying $38 million for a quarterback. And that doesn't even add, if you did draft a rookie like a Quinn Ewers, someone late, then that adds up to, $44 million of what Kirk would have cost you less than that in the first place. So the fact that they restructured him, I think points him in a direction where you need a plan in place. Like, you can't just wing it next offseason. You need to go and find the guy now. I think Zach Wilson is the perfect guy. Trey Lance might be unrealistic, just when you look like he could start for all we know. But there needs to be somebody in place, and I can't think of anyone else that would make sense other than Malik Willis or Zach Wilson. There's no one out there. Those are in Jaron Hall. As much as we love him, he's unfortunately not a guy that you could, just hand the keys to. He's a guy that you give it to 2 to 3 years from now when you're comfortable. So, yeah, I think that's just what's going to happen. They need a plan in place.
And that's the thing with Kirk Cousins. Like, if Kirk Cousins is your starting quarterback, you're not going to be picking top 10 more than likely. No. You're going to be, probably pick 18 and through pick 25 probably, at best case scenario. And that doesn't put you in a good position to move up for the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks because, Caleb Williams, I know we got a whole year of football yet, but he's 90% chance going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And then probably Drake May is probably, Drake May is probably top 3, top 5 at the worst, depending on, how everything shakes out. So you want one of those 2 guys. It's kind of the same situation as this year, and you're just going to have to give a crap ton of money. And those 2 quarterbacks are probably better than any of the quarterbacks that were in the draft this year. So the asking price is probably only going to be higher. So it's a tough situation. Yeah, I don't know what their exact plan is, and I don't know if they know what their exact plan is at this point either. Maybe they were hoping that one of those guys were going to fall this year, and that was kind of their plan, and nothing ever really happened. But speaking of Jaron Hall, I have him down as well. Obviously, he's not going to be starting this year. Probably not next year unless we just get an amazing surprise. Yeah. But what I have down is, fighting for that QB2 battle right now. I know Nick Mullins is loved in that locker room and everything like that, loved by Kirk Cousins. But if Jaron Hall balls out this offseason, balls out in the preseason, you got to give him every chance to be that quarterback too, don't you?
Yeah. I think it's going to be very similar to Kellen Mond. When Kellen Mond was here last year, they claim they gave him the opportunity to compete with Sean Mannion, but they knew all along who the backup was going to be. They knew that they were going to go get a Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
Jaron Hall, I will say I actually do think the Vikings are going to keep 3 quarterbacks. I think they really like Jaron Hall a lot, and they want to take their time with him to develop at least the whole year to see what they got.
Sure.
And I truly do think that they're going to go a little lower on wide receivers this year on the depth chart because of the flexibility they have in that tight end room in their
Sure.
running backs. I think, there's plenty of options where I could see them carrying, like a third quarterback. And I think the plan will be definitely be for Mullins to, he's very close with Kirk. So I think that, he's going to be the backup. And it gives Jaron Hall an opportunity to, to be the spy during camp and all of that. And, you can't trust a 5th-round pick to be a backup. Even a few years back when San Francisco felt really good with Jimmy and they had C.J. Beathard. C.J. Beathard, yeah, he's probably as good as a 5th, but he was a 3rd-round pick at the time. You got to put your faith in the 3rd-round pick. I don't know because if Kirk goes down, I mean, maybe they're okay with it because then he's like, oh, well, there's our excuse to be bad. We didn't intentionally tank.
Sure.
But, yeah, I think that's a scenario that they're going to really have to look at. Simply just because you can't trust Jaron Hall. I mean, unless he just goes like Russell Wilson on the bit in training camp and in spring train or not spring training, but in preseason where it's like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's ready to go,
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So I do think it's going to be very tough, but I do think Nick Mullins has pretty much locked up that backup quarterback job. It just comes down to how big of believers are they in Jaron Hall. Because Kwesi and them, they're not afraid to cut draft picks. They cut plenty of 3rd-round picks who Spielman drafted in his final year, and they didn't think twice. They will take the top 53 players, and they'll go and just have top 53 players. If you're the best, you're the best. Kwesi has no remorse. So I'm excited to see what they ultimately decide or have planned because we know Kwesi's making a few trades. He's not going to sit back too long.
Yeah. He's kind of the opposite of like Rick Spielman. Like Spielman's like you were talking about earlier. He's like the loyal to the bone. Like he's gonna keep, if his draft picks, are on kind of on the bubble, and there's some other guys on the bubble, he's probably gonna keep his draft picks, no matter the talent level there. Where Kwesi, yeah, like you said, he's kind of cutthroat. I'm keeping the best 53, and obviously best case scenario is if Jaron Hall just comes in and he's just plays amazing. Obviously, we would love that. That's probably not going to be the case though. Nick Mullins is a seasoned veteran. He can come in if he needs to. If Kirk gets a concussion, say, and needs to come in for a game, maybe 2, he can win. He can win you ball games because he's got experience in that offense, and he's had past success in the NFL. So I think I agree with you. It would be amazing if Jaron Hall could come in and just. There's no way you can't give him that QB2 job, but all more than likely, Nick Mullins is going to be your guy. And, for this year, that's probably, not the worst case scenario. One more thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight, Tom. Looking back to the 2022 draft class, they're gonna need to make some big steps forward if the Vikings of the 2023 season are going to make some splashes. You got Lewis Cine, you got Andrew Booth, even Ed Ingram. He didn't play all that well last year, but he started every 17 games. Can he take a next step at the right guard position? And then there's, Caleb Evans and a couple other guys. But do you see anyone coming in and just proving themselves right off the bat?
I think a lot of them are. I really do.
Awesome.
I know everyone, has really just hated that draft class. But I loved it, and I still do because I think a lot of casual fans, you're going to sit back, you're going to be like, oh, well, that was a terrible draft. He traded back, from 12 and 46 for 34 and, what it was at the time. Well, I mean, hey, James Williams is suspended, just saying. But also, what I think I like most is, Kwesi planned ahead. I don't think people realize that. They planned for life after Eric Hendricks. They planned for life after Patrick Peterson and in those guys in the secondary. Brian Asamoah replaces Eric Hendricks. You're going to have Lewis Cine replace Cam Bynum more than likely. And Cam Bynum's going to step in as like your everyday safety hybrid corner. I think that, that's what you're going to be looking at. And then, Ed Ingram, you needed a right guard. He struggled. Maybe they could bring in some competition like Dalton Reisner. But I think Lewis Cine's a starter this year. I think Andrew Booth starts on the outside this year. You have a Caleb Evans who's probably going to start on the outside because I believe Byron Murphy is going to be your full-time nickel from what I've kind of heard. And that's what it seems like. And then, it starts to add up a little bit. When you potentially find 3 or 4 starters in one draft, I would say that's a pretty damn good draft. And Lewis Cine, I think, actually is going to be a baller. I've never wanted to root for a guy. I've never wanted to root as hard for a guy as I have for Lewis Cine. Just the fact that, everyone talked down on him once he was drafted a safety in the first round. We have so many other needs. Well, I actually think he's life after Harrison Smith in about a year. He's going to be your everyday free safety. Then they'll probably have Ward from LSU that they drafted. He's probably your strong safety, or vice versa. Those are your 2 safeties probably going forward, who's often been compared to Jimmy Ward. That's what he was compared to. So Kwesi's drafts are kind of planning ahead. It's just people I don't think are necessarily seeing that version yet. Everyone just wants immediate success. And all the great teams, Kwesi came from Cleveland and he came from San Francisco. And you know what those teams do very well at? Finding depth, and they plan ahead. They know what they're going to do years. They drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones knowing he was eventually Andrew Berry. Drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones knowing he was eventually going to take over. They drafted Nick Harris, who was eventually going to take over. They drafted so many guys. Greedy Williams. They drafted Greg Newsome. Like they've drafted guys that they planned accordingly for. So I really do believe in Kwesi's vision and just the whole draft philosophy, because I think he is planning ahead. Even if it doesn't seem like it at the time, you just got to get these guys healthy and let them go ball out. This is a very young defense now compared to a year ago, outside of like Zadarius Smith and Daniil Hunter, maybe Harrison Smith, guys who are probably gone a year anyway. You're bringing in the youth. It can't be worse. You were 32nd basically last year anyway. So let them go out and ball, and let's see what these rookies got. Because I kind of view Kwesi in a way having 2 draft classes played this year, because everyone got hurt last year. Everybody got hurt. So I think you're going to see a draft class that has a lot of starters and a lot of production, and that's what you're going to see this season.
Yeah, they were dealt a terrible hand last year, like injury after injury. That's something you really can't prevent. I know there was some injury history with Andrew Booth Jr., but you can't pass on a talent when he falls into the back half of the second round. Like that dude, forget about injuries. He is super talented. Same goes for that whole draft class. Lewis Cine, just that versatile defender. And I think he's going to be great in the back end of that defense. Just stay healthy, and you got a starter for the next 6-7 years. Kind of like you said, replacing Harrison Smith. They do a lot of the same things. Can move around that defense, especially with Brian Flores. I mean, he's going to just do wonders for that kid.
He's going to blindside guys over the middle. I could already see
a
few finds coming his way. That's why I was so curious. Like we didn't see that much of him last year.
Yeah.
Because if you watch his Georgia tape, this guy's. If you just watch his hit on Kyle Pitts, that tells you all you need to know. He lays. I think he concussed himself. He's a hard hitter. I'm going to stick to my comp for him. And I think that, it's going to be, I think Cam Chancellor. I'm going to stick to it. That was my pre-draft comp for him.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what I think.
That'd be amazing. He was kind of battling that knee injury right away. So he was kind of behind a little bit, at the back end of the offseason. He had that nagging knee injury. I think he missed like the first 2 preseason games and maybe played the third. Mm-hmm. So he was just kind of behind the ball a little bit like that. And then I think Ed Donatel maybe wanted someone that had a little bit more experience in the back end of the defense, where he didn't want to rush Lewis Cine in, which is fine. But I think Brian Flores says, if you're ready to go, you're starting back there, which I absolutely love. And then, Brian Asamoah, we saw flashes last year. That was a 3rd-round pick. If he can be a starter, that's a hit. Ed Ingram, he started all 17 games last year. Was he bad at certain times? Yeah, he was bad, but it's a rookie offensive lineman. You're going to expect ups and downs for the most part. So if he can take another step forward, that's a hit. Even Jalen Naylor, I know you got your top 3 receivers, but if he can just be a deep threat, catch 25, 30 balls and score a couple touchdowns, that's a hit. I think he was like a 5th or 6th round draft pick.
6, so, Michigan State.
Yeah. So if you get 3 or 4 hits, that's a successful draft that are contributing, even starting. And like you said, you're pretty much getting 2 draft classes starting fresh in 2023 here. Last year's draft class and this year's draft class. Just an infusion of youth into that defense, which is a very welcome sight. And, you got Harrison Smith, Daniil Hunter, maybe Zadarius Smith. That's the perfect leadership, perfect guys with experience mixed with all those young guns. And I can't wait to watch that defense play this year. I'm super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think what I'm most excited about is to see the amount of times that Flores is going to blitz. Because I don't know how many times I got annoyed last year seeing like zone, just, whether it's Dak Prescott or, even Justin Fields, in Goff. I take that back. I will never get over the Jared Goff game in Detroit. Jared Goff, I think I counted multiple times, had like 7 to 8 seconds back there, only rushing like 3 guys, and it's just first down,
Yeah.
10 yards.
The playoff game drove me freaking crazy because Ed Donatell at that press conference like 4 days before the game, you're gonna like the way our defense plays. Just Daniel Jones just tears him up.
Not as much as I'm gonna see you walk out that door. Man, yeah, that was I think the Giants game. I think O'Connell, low key, kept his cool on the outside, but on the inside he was red hot. And he's a guy who strikes me as someone that really wants to like keep their cool.
Yeah.
And if they would have, I would say if the season went on a few more games, I think he would have snapped on Donatell, or maybe he did in the meetings. I don't know. O'Connell does seem like a guy who keeps it in house, but man, that guy, he's gonna love Brian Flores because I do think the Vikings have a shot. I think to really exceed expectations this year and be a very complete team. Because I think O'Connell had to get a little more involved with the defense last year than maybe he wanted to. And I think this year you're going to have your head coach on offense and your head coach on defense. It's been a long time in Minnesota since we've seen that, since maybe, I don't know, Zimmer and Norv. Maybe that, or Shermer, probably Shermer. Yeah, probably Shermer, I would say. Where Shermer, you knew he was the head coach of the offense. And that was when the Vikings were most successful. Because that's when Case Keenum, they had that magical year. Zimmer didn't have to worry about the offense. He could focus on just the defense. And I think that's what we're going to see with Flores. And then we're also going to see with O'Connell. And I have a good feeling that I think Flores is going to be here long term. I'm not necessarily sold on the fact that he wants to be a head coach. He kind of strikes me as one of those coaches, kind of like Dan Quinn, where his name will be floated every offseason, but he will still remain where he's at until it's just the absolute perfect gig. And Flores, he's gonna wait. There's a reason he didn't want that Cardinals job.
Yeah, that's a great point. I feel like KOC and Brian Flores, match made in heaven, and then you got Matt Daniels running that special teams. That's just a beautiful trio of coordinators, head coach. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be rushing to get out of town anytime soon. He's going to wait for the right spot. And looking ahead, I don't know if there's really any openings that are really going to be all too desirable. I know a lot of things can change in a year, but he's not going to rush into like you said, he passed up that Cardinal situation, was just not a good situation at all. And then was he Colts? Was he on the Colts too? Maybe, but maybe not. But
I think Cardinals was the only one that he was kind of like a finalist for. I think he was like in like the pre meetings. Like I think it was I think Denver. I think it was Denver. I think.
Oh sure, yeah.
He was like a final 3 or final 5, but Sean Payton trumps all.
Yeah, but I could see him, for sure being here. Roughly 3 years, just building up that defense. And then probably getting a head coaching job. But as long as KOC and Brian Flores are running things, I feel pretty damn good about our chances. Offensively and defensively.
Yeah, and and this draft was full of flexibility. Versatility. I couldn't believe it. Was it Ward who could play where he's played both
like 3 different spots? Yeah,
he's played corner, and I think he played like
4 different spots.
He played linebacker too. Like,
he's
just been used all over the place. Where that's a guy that like I think Flores kind of likes. That could be like his Patrick Chung, from when he was kind of in New England. Someone who could play just all over the field. And I think that's the creativity that the Vikings are going to be looking for. And a team that I think that really that has shown a lot of success with that over the last few years, that I do think they're going to try to take a blueprint from, is the Seattle Seahawks. We saw it last year. Tariq Woolen was like a 5th-round pick. They just threw him out there. Like, they knew. They came to terms knowing that their defense was going to be really bad. So they just played a bunch of rookies. And they figured, look, if we throw 11, multiple rookies out there, let's just hope that, like, 2 hit. And then if we have, like, 3 or 4 guys hit, then we're looking really good. And I think that's the philosophy that potentially O'Connell, Kwesi, and them are going to be implementing here in Minnesota. Because you got Mekhi Blackman, he could start day one. You got Andrew Booth that could start. You have Byron Murphy who's already starting. You got Ward who could, if Scene's not ready, you could throw him out there. Because I think they're going to take their time with Lewis Scene. They're not going to rush him back out there, not with that first-round draft capital investment.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the rookies, they report this Thursday, May 11th. So we're going to have some content there. They get to get on the field a little bit. Excited to watch that group. Our guy Thayer Thomas as well that we had on the show.
Yes.
Gets to take the field. But anything else, Tom, before we head out?
I'm just really excited, to see, because I think we're going to have a lot of guys that, are going to show up. Obviously, Danielle Hunter and Cook will not be there, but I think it does speak volume, with the amount of uncertainty that, what Kirk Cousins has. He doesn't have to show up to volunteer workouts. That's just the type of guy he is, and he's willing to answer questions and do everything. So, yeah, I think I'm really excited just over the next few months to see what happens with Kirk and what happens with mini camp and training camp. I'm going to try to go to training camp. I've always wanted to go there. So, but, this year, I think I'm going to try this year because I really want to see them live and not have to just listen to, like, the beat reporters. I want to see with my own eyes, what's going on out here. And, yeah, so I'm just excited for what the next few months hold.
Yeah, for sure. Just super exciting. A lot of loose ends to take care of yet, obviously, how all these situations are going to figure out. But, yeah, another year in Kevin O'Connell's system, seeing these rookies come in, and then watching Brian Flores get his hands on that defense. It's for sure an exciting time of the year. But, Tom, thanks for joining me, man. Yeah, we'll see everyone in the next one. Peace.